Today we're going to be looking at some user-submitted artwork. You guys posted on my Discord a bunch of various drawings you wanted me to look at and give my feedback on. I've been a story artist in the industry for about 7 years now. I've been at DreamWorks Feature for the past 6.5 years. I've worked on these movies. And I'm going to be helping some people fix their artwork. And by fixing artwork, I really mean giving a gentle critique, because everybody draws different, everybody's a different style, and what I like isn't necessarily what you would like. But hopefully you learn a little bit about how I draw, and hopefully it'll help them, and hopefully help some of you guys out there also. Okay, this first drawing comes to us from Pi, who submitted this on the Discord. And what we have here is a nice, charming scene of 4 friends having lunch at like a pizza parlor. And I actually really like this. It's really charming. They're all interacting with the environment. They're all talking to each other. They're all doing different things. It's actually a really charming scene we have. My main gripes with it right now are the structure of the characters. And I know they're super stylized, but they could still have a bit more structure in how they're like built, like their anatomy and like how their eyes are placed, and a bit of the perspective. I noticed the perspective, especially in the back of these booths, is a little bit wonky. So let's fix that. So to tackle the wonky perspective, let's start by setting up this table. And I'm going to be talking from the perspective of a story artist, so not really viz dev or art or anything like that, just purely story. Keep track of their relationship to each other, and just lay down a simple grid that you can work off of. And then everything else will follow this grid you've made. So this line, doesn't have to be perfect, just make sure it will line up so nothing stands out. So now that we have a bit of a background set up, we can start addressing our main characters here. So we have here some really charming characters. I really like your sense of design. I really like how cartoony you made them. I think they're really charming. I think a few things you can look out for are just making sure the structure on each character works well. So make sure that the eyes are, aligned well into perspective. So for instance, this eye is too high compared to this eye, especially because we're looking down on them and it's a down shot. Just make sure that the eyes are set really nicely. See how we're following the roundness of the head here. Get the eyebrows in there. Even if you won't see the eyebrow because the hat covers it, you can just cheat it. Just cheat everything. Nothing really matters. Let's get the nose. Make sure it follows this perspective again. Here, the mouth will be a little bit smaller because we're looking down on him. So here, the mouth will be closed. Chewing, add a little movement marks for the chew. Also, when you're doing your line work, try not to make it this kind of feathery, line style. When you're doing lines, try to make it one nice, long, clean line. That will help you with clarity, and it'll help avoid it looking a little messy and rough. Make sure the cloth is folding in on itself in a nice and simplified way. Here for the hands, you can kind of group them up. You don't have to do each hand separately. So you can kind of group up the hands like this, so you don't have to draw each and every finger individually. Now let's push this burger a little bit. Let's make it kind of sagging down. I think that could be a fun little, maybe stuff is dripping off the burger. Adding like a little bit of character there. Maybe something on his mouth. Can't forget his thumb. You can play around with the skew. Maybe he's leaning in more. And here you can already see how this is starting to really like fit into the world. If we take a look at the difference between the two, you can see how much more this kind of starts to fit into the environment. I know this expression is different. I actually kind of like how you do the expression. Do the expression any way that you want. This is just kind of like me fixing the structure and perspective. I actually love the way that you have him looking kind of surprised and shocked and kind of like in mid-chew. So really it's not about better choices, it's just about different choices. Now we can tackle this girl on this other side. I really love her pose, but it's a little bit confusing. So right now we can see that she's holding a book, and it's kind of hard to tell at first glance, and what we're really looking at is for stuff to be readable and clear, and that you don't have to like strain your head to figure out what's going on in the scene. So what we really want to do is just make sure that this pose is very readable to the audience. I like this kind of like anime hair. We can actually push these volumes a lot. Again, make sure that the eyes fit into perspective. The mouth will be way more downturned than you have it here. And you can stylize it a bit, just make sure we kind of get that perspective working. And here for this pose, let's actually push out this arm. Let's kind of draw the book in the way we want it and then kind of work the pose around that. So here we have a book. We have this character holding it. And then they're pointing to it with a pen. So here, this arm is going to be on the other side. I'll draw the pen first, just so I know where I want my silhouette to be. And then we can add the hand in afterwards. Same for this guy. Make sure the hair, maybe change it up a little bit. You see how the spikes, your hair spikes are a little even and kind of like not, their shapes aren't kind of fully developed. Just make sure when you're drawing it, you want to like alternate between smaller and bigger shapes, and make sure these shapes are like very clear and speak to a specific personality, instead of kind of, you kind of know you want spiky hair, but it feels like you're a bit too scared to fully commit. Let's center these eyes a bit. I really love the way you have this kind of like side mouth chewing pose here. I'm definitely gonna keep that in. These are really awesome acting choices you have. So here it kind of looks like the thumb is opposite of how it's supposed to be, so just make sure the thumb is on the right side of the hand. Maybe the cheese is like gooping onto the table or something. Sorry for saying gooping. We can do a little bit of interior hair shapes also, just to make it feel like there's more volume up there, instead of keeping it, you know, more flat. This guy, I think, needs the most help with his perspective. So if he's sticking his neck out and chewing, just kind of set it up before, like just set up a quick structure so you know exactly how this is gonna look. He's kind of leaning his arm at the back of this booth here, which is a really great touch. And here, let's start with his mouth and then kind of work our way backwards, because that's kind of what's most important about this character and his pose. So you want to get his mouth right. So here, because he's kind of sticking, because we're in a down shot, but he's also sticking his head up, it's a little bit of a weird angle. Kind of, you want to see the teeth back there. See the nose, we kind of see the bottom of the nose a little bit. And this is a great silhouette you have. Like him dropping the pizza. into his mouth. Oh wait, it's a fry. Never mind. Great silhouette of him dropping a fry into his mouth. And here, if you look at how they look together, they all really kind of fit into their environment, and we kind of have a really good down shot on them. Honestly, I love the way you drew these characters. They were really fun to draw, and I would really love to see you like explore this more. Like, these are awesome. Oh, I forgot her little tuft. I almost didn't catch that. That's really cute. Now for the lighting, I kind of like how you did the lighting. However, I think it might be a bit too tame, like a bit too flat, and I think you would actually push the lighting a lot. Now I'm going to be working on grayscale here. Again, I'm a story artist. You guys submitted a lot of color stuff. I'm not a big color guy, so I'm going to be working in black and white. I am sorry. Let's see where the light will be coming from, maybe up top. So I'll kind of put a nice bright light source coming from up there. I'll kind of do a really rough job toning these. Let's get kind of a soft brush. Start plugging in these where these lights kind of want to go, what they like want to be hitting. Obviously I'm going to kind of push where I want the focal point to be, which in my mind is going to be this book. I like working with these like kind of big soft lights at first because it kind of helps me see how I want my lights to go. Another thing that you can do to really make your characters pop out, coloring the eyes white and the teeth. It's just the points that people look at the most, so your eye will naturally be drawn there. Here we can even get a more kind of highlight down. Now we can get some of the darks in there, kind of behind where they're sitting. Where their heads kind of block out the light, you know, his hat, the back of his seat. Underneath where his hand is, there's going to be cast shadows. Obviously underneath like the burger. And obviously you want to lower the detail as you go back. You know, add a little bit of shadow in the background, but honestly you want to make the background the point of the least contrast. So whenever you do make shadows in the background, you want to kind of bring them back a little, like lower the opacity. You want to make sure that our eyes are looking at our heroes here. And yeah, here we can see a side by side of our two drawings. I just kind of focused on making the lighting a bit more dramatic and making sure that their perspective and structure work well. Alright, so this next drawing comes to us from Alex, who also submitted it on the Discord. And what we have here is this really cool scene of this kind of like vagabond wanderer looking guy walking through this crowd of people. And I really like how you use kind of tone and kind of the different layers to communicate depth. And I love, you know, the expression on his like llama donkey's face and how his face is kind of hidden. And there are a few things that I could say, which is maybe show the expressions of these background characters, and maybe we can like clean up this main character a little bit. So this is more of a storyboard, which is perfect. And if we were going to storyboard this, I would, one, make sure they're a little bit more left and kind of maybe make them like a little bit bigger in frame. Maybe let's select these guys and make them a little bit larger. And now for this, I would, even though you are hiding his face, and I think that's a great choice, I think what we can do is maybe show just a little bit more of his face to just draw more intrigue to what we're looking at. So the audience is kind of like, they want to see more. This straw hat on him. And maybe he's even leaning a bit more. And this will be completely in shadow. Maybe he's leaning, maybe he's grabbing onto some reins here and keeping this animal kind of in check, kind of connect him a little bit to his environment and to like the other characters in the scene. I love this kind of like long robe you have here, like the robe flowing all the way down. I think that's awesome. I do wish I saw like maybe a little bit more of his kind of sleeve here. Maybe his hand. Maybe, just maybe, we can add like a little bit of a sword. Now I don't know if this is what you intended, but I'm gonna do it anyway because I think swords are cool. Maybe you can have a bit of longer hair poking out. And now for your alpaca thing, I think define what animal this is a bit more because I'm a little bit lost onto what creature we're looking at. I'm just gonna make it like a donkey. Maybe you can add a little bit more expression. I like donkeys, so that's what he's gonna be. This leg will be forward, this leg will be back. Maybe we can show a bit more about how this cart is like connected to him. Now that we have our two main characters, let's start focusing on these background guys. So I love the way you toned them and you had them all kind of surrounding them, but I think what you can do for next time is kind of having them react a little bit, because that's kind of what I'm missing, a little bit of that storytelling element. So while it's great and crowds, you can usually avoid giving expressions or making them kind of like very detailed. Just try to give it a little bit of a story. So maybe they're like disgusted. They don't have to be detailed to these background characters, but just kind of make sure that they're part of their story. They're not just random characters. Half the extras I draw when I work end up being bald, because I'm too lazy to draw them all in. And here we can have one that's like very much in the foreground, cutting this side of this frame. You can draw more back here. And even if you want to just kind of keep crowds simple, you can just do like a lump and draw eyes and expressions and, you know, kind of vague shapes in the back. They don't have to be incredibly detailed. And for the background, you have these really nice kind of like lanterns chained up here. And then I like to do a little grid in the back just to kind of get us settled in the world. Maybe there's a bit of a building here. Add some buildings in this background area. We always like to lower the opacity for those, so it kind of gets pushed in the back. Alright, you see how I kind of made the characters more of the focal point with like all these crowds looking at them. Before it was just kind of like these generic kind of gray blobs in the back, and now it's kind of like, oh, who are these guys? Why are they like why are they looked at like this? And it kind of creates more of this appealing story in people's heads that, you know, we're looking at like now two factors. It's a mysterious guy and people are like scared or disgusted, versus just a mysterious guy walking. We're kind of missing one half of the story, which is like the environment. And now if we want to tone this, again, I would probably start with a gradient, probably actually dark to light. So maybe it's a bit more of a nighttime scene. At least that's kind of what I was picturing, with like these lanterns illuminating a glow on them. And if we want to go that route, then we'd kind of go for like a more, you know, flat color, and then we start from where these lights are. Kind of take a soft round brush and kind of start using our light sources, kind of building it up from our brush almost. And showing how these lights are hitting our characters, how the lights are hitting the buildings. Our extras, even though they'll be more gray, still get hit by the light. I won't, however, light up this foreground guy because he's going to be a very dark gray. Let's get the paint bucket tool. Let's get a really dark gray. Let's go a little darker than that. It's not that dark. And then what we can do for a quick, easy, you know, depth of field, we can just get a Gaussian blur in there. And then for all these background guys, we can kind of quickly select them, kind of make it kind of a darker gray, just to push our heroes a little bit more into the foreground. And as for our heroes, let's make them look almost rim lit. Quick thing we can do to make our heroes pop is color in the eyes white. His eyes are in shadow, so, you know, Maybe we can add a little bit there. Then we can also add a little bit of this rim light from these. Because we want them to be the center of our attention. You know what? Let's make these background characters a bit darker, so there's more of a difference. And there you go. We can kind of now see the little bit of detail can like add a lot to a story, and this tone can really make it feel a certain way. So I kind of wanted a moody, kind of almost like festival light, kind of he's like interrupting a festival almost. And that way you can, again, bring even a third layer of story into it. And you can tell a lot in a single image, really. And thanks for submitting this, Alex. Honestly, awesome work. And I hope you continue these guys' story. All right, and our last drawing comes from Emily, who also submitted via Discord. And we have this really charming character feeding this owl. These really kind of nice pastel-y, soft colors. Very nice expression. I like this like lineless style you have, which to me is like, I don't know, it's very foreign. I can't do lineless, but you know, I'm gonna try to help you today. And this kind of reminds me a little bit of Hiccup from How to Train Your Dragon. I wonder if that was a bit of the inspiration. So instead of just kind of painting over this, I'm kind of gonna go with like kind of rethink how I would do this pose and do this expression, just to really like show you guys my thought process instead of just how I render, because honestly how I render isn't anything special. I think what I can give to you guys is how I would rethink this kind of as a storytelling drawing. So honestly, I kind of want to rethink this as kind of how do I tell his story in the best way? And I think a good way to start is maybe how does this character sit? Is there something unique about this character? So I'm going to do it a little bit more of a slouch position, get a bit more of like a gesture in the way this character is sitting. I'm just gonna quickly lay out where I want their legs to be. Again, I'm gonna keep this rough and loose. This is really only about kind of the storytelling aspect of this drawing. I'm thinking about how I want his hand placed. You know, what kind of silhouette I want for this worm. And I'm gonna draw the worm first just because I want to think about that silhouette first. And the hand I can kind of plug in however. Get his head attachment. I drew this hand way too big, so I'm gonna shrink this down. Plug in this owl. I really love the way you drew this owl. It's very cute. You know, maybe his head is tilted. Get a bit more of a curious, like, personality in there. Do owls have pupils? You know what? I'm gonna give them really big pupils anyway because I think that's cute. And I love these little horns. I love drawing over people's stuff because they've done all the research for me and they've done all the character designs, and what I can do is just kind of give my spin on it. So thank you guys for submitting your art. It's very inspirational and makes me want to draw. So now I will start with the structure of his head. I kind of, instead of just being straight curly, I'll make it curly with like a little bit of sweeping, messy hair, just so there's a little bit more visual interest here. For me, instead of him being happy, he'll be a little happy, but he'll be more worried or, you know, anticipatory. Here's when I start figuring out, like, you know, how the folds work. What kind of boots is he wearing? Is there laces on them? Fantasy boots have laces? I'm not sure. And then we see a little bit of the tuck into the boot, just to create a little bit more flavor. Get these folds in there, get his bracers made out of leather. And there you go. Here's a side-by-side of how I would tackle this specific drawing, just with more of a focus on storytelling and character expressions and less about rendering and painting and color. And I would kind of just really hone in who this character is, the relationship between this character and the owl, kind of the silhouette of how he's holding the worm. Just make sure it kind of really works. Make sure we want to know more about these characters. Make sure we want to see more of your art, basically. And a lot of that comes from the storytelling that your art conveys. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to submit your artwork, you can in the Discord below. I will be doing this kind of video again because personally I love it. I love seeing your art. I love giving feedback. I love giving my take on people's art, even though it might not necessarily be better. I just love doing it. And don't forget to subscribe, comment, leave a like if you liked it. Bye.